can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just
And that's why they call it Freewheeling Friday. Thanks for all being patient, folks, and waiting. Wow, a lot of you did wait. Yeah, thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. It is Friday, Freewheeling Friday. All right, this is your your friendly neighborhood host. I did it for you. Your friendly neighborhood host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. This is going to be a show, and if you stuck around, I'm glad you did, because this is an important one. Okay, this is why they hate my guts, because I'm going to tell you stuff right now that you're never supposed to hear about, especially when there's a well-coordinated media drop to embarrass, destroy, and or smear someone. They really hate it when you throw a monkey in the wrench and tell you that, and somebody comes out and tells you that it's been in the works for a while, right? It's nothing spontaneous at all. And in fact, people were just waiting for their time to strike. And that's what's going on here. So let's start off with the Nikki Haley thing. But I do want to get in the late entry of consumer sentiment, because this is about data. The show is about data, of course. It started, of course, like that. It's just that I can't, when I know something like this, I can't just shut up and sit silent and play the game like everybody else does. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing it anymore. All right. But yes, because consumer sentiment is very, very important. And economic indicators are not looking great right now. Consumer sentiment is a big indicator of GDP, and it tells the story. I mean, it tells a big story when it's one piece in a larger puzzle. And I've been saying this, so it is what it is. So really, we talked earlier. Let's start with the Haley and impeachment and everything. All right. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on impeachment other than what it does to reinforce the greater point I'm trying to make. All right. But we've been speaking this week in general, since I've been back, about the war, or the battle, really, for the Republican Party, which is a battle in a greater conflict or war for the future of the nation, of course, right? Because what do parties do? They have visions for the future of the nation, and people who have beliefs and ways of life that they want to protect, or ideology coming first, as it is with one side. Their vehicle to affect that change in that future is the party. All right. And there's not a bigger story right now than what is going on with the Republican Party. Now, for years, I have dropped little hints, little even stories we've covered on People's Pundit Daily. One about Miss Haley herself, which I'm going to show and remind everybody about. That basically tell that Nikki Haley has been wanting to run for president for a long time. Now, that may not surprise you. But what may surprise you of who have been, because it's multiple, but one in particular who has been, but really who have been her allies in this whole process, and how these people would go on Fox News and tout Donald Trump and sing his praises, while behind the scenes go to big donors and trash talk the man to death. Think and lay out a vision for them about a post Donald Trump Republican Party, and how that would ultimately be better, and that how we should just go back to business as usual, and then we'll wait until it's an opportune time to strike, and we'll do it when the iron's hot. And of course, I'm talking about her fellow senators, her fellow South Carolinians, both of them, Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott. And Lindsey, I dare you. I double dog, triple dog dare you to deny what I'm going to say right now.
Please do.
Because I will look back in the notes and find the exact day that you offered your own residence to meet with her. And there's one donor in particular now who she can generally get a meeting with all of these people that we're talking about. Now, how do I know this? Because people call me and ask me whether or not, because of what I do, whether or not they're wasting their money supporting certain people. Is this person a viable candidate? Really? They all talk a big game when they're in front of the donors, folks. They all talk a big game, and they're all very impressive. They're very good in a room, one-on-one. They're not so good on the campaign trail in the state of Michigan. They're not so good on the campaign trail in the state of Florida. They're not so good on the campaign trail in the state of Pennsylvania. They're not so good on the campaign trail in Wisconsin, Iowa, or Ohio. All states that Donald Trump has won at one time or another, or kept, that Republicans have been unable to win. Republicans represented by the mold of Nikki Haley have been unable to win in nearly 2 decades, sometimes more. George Herbert Walker Bush did not carry the state of Wisconsin. George W. Bush did not carry it either time, though he came very close at least once. And he did come very close in Pennsylvania, too, against Kerry. Didn't happen. He did not even come close in the state of Michigan. He hung his entire re-election campaign on 10,000 votes in the state of Iowa, which Donald Trump carried by nearly 10 points. But they have been telling these donors that the best course is to go backward. And the truth of the matter is, Nikki Haley, when she resigned in January, or earlier, had been already by January of 2019. She absolutely. So, am I cutting? Oh, it's because of this thing, this mold. I can't show them this until I get rid of the audio. Okay, hold on one second. Let me get rid of the audio because there's a video to go along with it. But January 2019, let's rewind the clock a little bit. She's making all the rounds with the help of her buddy Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott, her buddies, all right, getting into the door of these people and telling these people, some of whom were weary of Donald Trump. And she had already been talking to many of them during the midterms, which was bad because it was really reinforcing the media narrative. Nikki Haley's on her way out. She's a respectable woman, your typical Republican woman, or represents your typical Republican woman. Maybe it's not a good thing to back Donald Trump. Even Nikki Haley is rethinking whether or not we should support the Republican Party under Donald Trump. All right. So she was particularly harmful, right? Yeah. I mean, it was nothing really. Healthcare lost the Republicans the midterm elections. Donald Trump saved them in the Senate. They would have lost the Senate in 2018 if it was not for Donald Trump. And there'd be a whole lot of senators right now that would not even be senators if it was not for Donald Trump. Okay. But healthcare was the major issue, but there's certainly things that reinforce that, Nikki Haley being one of them. All right. So back then, these donors are still taking meetings with her. Okay. They are still taking meetings. And she's giving them the grand vision and telling them, that once Donald Trump is gone, we can go back to reaching out to more people. We can build on what we've done here and we can reach out to even more people. The whole spiel, folks. Win women back, stop the slide in the suburbs, blah, 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 blah. All right. They mistake that, again, they can't do basic math, so they don't realize that, 10 is bigger than 2, is greater than 2. All right, so the amount that Nikki Haley would be sacrificing, the amount of voters that somebody like Nikki Haley would be sacrificing is far greater than the amount of voters, the percentage of voters, if you want to be specific, that Nikki Haley could appeal to, okay? Anyway, Tim Scott, particularly too, Lindsey Graham's a little bit more of a politician. All right. So he's a little bit, when he talks to these people, he's a little bit more where he can fence ride later on, right? Where Tim Scott was particularly nasty about how he viewed Donald Trump and Donald Trump's vision for the Republican Party. I would note too that it was mostly along racial lines, okay? And that he was wrong. Because in the end, Donald Trump won more than his racially sensitive buddy Mitt Romney ever could have dreamed when it comes to non-white voters. So not only was Tim Scott's argument mean behind closed doors, it was intellectually incorrect. All right, so anyway, to make a very long story short, she told them she was not going to run against Donald Trump in 2020, unless the impeachment you all didn't really know about yet, but they did, okay? Unless the impeachment was successful. Unless Mueller turned something up late in the game, unless somebody came up with something, which they did, Ukraine. Then, if it was bad, if it was really bad, then she would get in and she would challenge Trump and save the party from themselves. She would save you from your own stupidity because she knows what's better than you. Really, what this boils down to is that Nikki Haley was really part of the crowd, the H.R. McMaster crowd, the Mattis crowd, and even for a while, the Tillerson and then certainly Pompeo crowd, who was appalled in 2018 when Donald Trump did not want that war, covert war in Syria anymore with the CIA. And he told them, Afghanistan's next, so you better give me a plan in the book soon because I'm going to be asking for it real soon. and they all lost their minds. Lindsey Graham included, because Lindsey loves war. Because Lindsey has been bankrolled by the military-industrial complex and defense contractors his entire political career. Lindsey Graham owes them. He doesn't owe you squat. That's the way he sees it. And now a couple Quinnipiac polls can come out showing him in a tight race, and then he'll kiss your butt again. Then he'll go on Sean Hannity and he'll beg, LindseyGraham.com. Remember that? With damn near crying. LindseyGraham.com. I'm defending the president. Do you remember that? I'm defending the president. Defend me. Defend me. You know what I'm talking about, guys. I know some of you see you laughing, but it's really not funny because he's full of crap. Because he's a liar. And people can lie to you that easily and still think it's okay. Because the next day, 2 days after the election, not 48 hours it was before that phone call, he's on the phone with one of these very same donors telling them that all the Republicans in the Senate think that Donald Trump was robbed. Everybody in D.C. thinks Donald Trump was robbed, but there's nothing we can do about it. I'm sorry.
What?
And that was the first mistake he made because these donors spent a lot of money and they felt like they were being robbed, literally. And they wanted something more. So that began the end of their open door policy with the Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley wing. And it became more of, you better start showing us results. Now, like I said, he was a little bit easier straddling the fence, a little bit more smart about it. So he certainly has people that he can call and get on the bandwagon. By the way, you should know the handwriting of the Republican Senate establishment when you see it. It comes in the form of a political article, but typically by that particular author. Did they leave out that Nikki Haley was basically tossed from some of these circles? Did she forget to leave that out in her glowing piece about how she's going to be the savior of the Republican Party? And did that journalist not do his digging on some of her typical donors who would go around and meet with her, invite her into their home where they raise their children, where they feed their families, where they rest their bones after they work for that money that she begs them for? This was in the wind. This whole spiel. She told them when the time was right. And the time is now right. How much more of a backstabbing, low-life piece of political trash can you be to not stab a man in the back, to stab him in the back repeatedly and then kick him while he is down? How much of a piece of garbage do you have to be to wait until he is on the day of his defense in an impeachment trial? One which, by the way, after the House managers, the prosecution, made a case that even appalled some of these very same people. They just find Donald Trump more appalling than House managers who would fabricate evidence on the floor of the U.S. Senate during an impeachment trial. That doesn't appall them as much as the prospect of a party not controlled by them, a party influenced and forever changed by Donald J. Trump. Just marinate on that for a second. It appalls them less that they could delete 500 words out of a transcript to essentially frame somebody for doing something. They can alter tweets and Photoshop blue checks on them. That's appalling, but not as appalling as the prospect of them not running the Republican Party. These are the people you are dealing with. Even Lindsey Graham himself took to Twitter with his little act about how their conviction votes are falling now after that presentation. Why were there ever any conviction votes in the first place? since you all well knew. Are you a US, are you telling me that you're a US senator, but you're too freaking stupid to read a transcript? Too lazy? Do you also need your legislative assistants to wipe your ass for you? Is there anything that you can do on your own that you don't need somebody who works for you? That's perfectly fine in my handbook, Laura. I get this is Laura is like the what is
First
it?
word police.
The like the censor police, right? Remember the 90s when they were like children can't be playing video games, or MTV shouldn't have let Kennedy do that to the microphone on air behind Rudy Giuliani. All right, that's Laura on this show. Okay,
I am the good angel
all right,
on the right shoulder.
That 3-letter word is not permitted, mister.
Amen. Recognize.
Let it get demonetized. I think we'll live without the revenue from the ads on this show. All right. I know it's not that what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I'm saying, you know what the point is made, though. The point is made. Yeah. Why were there any, if you're like a 10-year-old, you could rewind the video and listen to what he said. You know, Mitch McConnell and company, by the way, who planted that. That is Mitch McConnell's boy over there at Politico. All right. That is Mitch McConnell's staff. Anytime the Republican Party in DC needs to smear a conservative or take out or derail a conservative, or I can't even call it Donald Trump. He was more conservative than so-called conservative presidents. I would say that's accurate, but he wasn't a conservative. I mean, he's something different, which is a threat to them. He's a populist conservative. You know, I mean, I don't know what to say. A populist, common sense kind of conservative, which is used his own words that he said in 2016 when asked to define what kind of conservatism he believed in. You know, the common sense kind, the one most Americans believe in, right? It's like, just something everyone knows is true. Everyone knows is right. That's the kind of conservative, right? But a 10-year-old could go back and read that on their own and know that that's not true. But it doesn't matter, because the Republicans get rid of people, even in their own ranks, that they feel are a threat to them. And when they need to do that, they run to Politico. For those of you who don't know the playbook, the Mitch McConnell playbook, that is it. In a nutshell, the John Thunes, the Tim Scotts, the Lindsey Grahams, if they need you hurting, they'll run a Politico, who will be happy without doing any due diligence whatsoever. They will be happy to smear the hell out of you. They will be happy to coordinate a hit on you, which is what this is. This is a hit job on the day of the man's defense. I don't know how much more. Look, again, I go back to this idea, like basic reading, right, of Western civilization. Dante's Inferno. Who did Dante reserve the worst, final and worst level of hell for? Et tu, Brute, right? Betrayers. Doesn't matter whether you like or dislike Donald Trump. You're the one who chose to pretend you were his friend, right? You're the one who chose to pretend to be an ally of him. The person being betrayed, it didn't matter that Julius Caesar, first of all, he's no Julius Caesar. But it doesn't matter what kind of a person Julius Caesar was. They pretended to be his loyal confidants, friends, and advisors. And they were betrayers. They are the liars. They are worse than the man himself. It's sad. Very sad. Because I don't know where it came to this point. And this is both sides of the equation here. When did you get duped into believing that politicians were decent people? Where along the way And this goes for if you're a Democrat and you don't like Republicans and you somehow think Democrats are good people. Same goes for Republicans who don't like Democrats and somehow think they're just evil people. Where did any of you get the foolish, naive, silly little idea that these are good men and women?
Even George Washington warned.
I mean,
about this in
the entire republic is built around the concept that men and women are inherently flawed.
Flawed. Yeah.
John Adams, if men were angels, we wouldn't need laws. If you give people the opportunity to be pieces of crap, more than likely those in power will be pieces of crap. They will betray people they claim to be friends.
For the 3 Ps.
They will stomp on the people who got them where they are. And they will devalue, overall, devalue human life. Where did anybody get the naive, stupid, silly little idea that they can be trusted? This is the worst kind of story, because this is the kind of, and this is what I said on Twitter, this is the kind of story that really just starts off with a supposition, right? Or really, I mean, a pretext. But it starts off with giving an impression that somehow something changed, right? So if you're really to believe the entire purpose of the Politico article, then you have to believe the lie that you get hit with on the onset of the article, which is that Nikki Haley was ever with Donald Trump to begin with. What I'm telling you is she is not. She was not. What I am telling you is that she has been talking crap behind his back for already 2+ years. Privately, with donors who she is told she wants to be president. She was the governor of South Carolina.
Wasn't that her stipulation, though, to not run in 2016?
Well, no, 2020 you're talking about. She told them that she was trying. I mean, let me explain this to you, folks. Let me just be very clear. She was trying to trick the Trump base. That was a conscious effort. The reason why she didn't want to challenge him and impose him, the reason why she pretended publicly to support him when she was the ambassador to the UN and sung his praises and pretended like she agreed with the strategy at the UN and his foreign policy doctrine in its entirety, which was principled realism, what he called principled realism. She's not a realist. She's a neocon who believes in the power, the supremacy of U.S. power to force, by military force, the world in our image. They don't believe in the idea that you could, like the fool's gold. What did Snyder call it? Missive Empire. That basically you pursue this, and why it's so foolish. Neoconservatism is foolish. You can't do it. You'll burn your treasure pot out, and you're going to end up with less relative power than you did when you started this adventure of shaping the world in your image. Sounds a lot like Hitler, by the way. I mean, it does. It's authoritarian.
If the shoe fits.
If the shoe fits, which who we're going to get into. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, authoritarianism, later in the show. But I'm telling you, it was a conscious effort. She was telling people she didn't want to run in 2020 because she wanted to trick you, the Trump voter, into thinking that she was on Donald Trump's side. He knew she wasn't on his side, which is why he praised her. That's Trump's strategy. Flatter, 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 flatter. Flatter into loyalty, flatter, right? And that's why you saw the outgoing little presser that he gave to her. She was the only one, for those who like little history tidbits, she was the only member of the administration at that point who had left that Donald Trump had given a personal send-off to, a well-wishing personal send-off. Doesn't that make what a piece of garbage betrayer she is even worse? And she leaves and continues her little donor tour, her little Graham Scott backed up donor tour, telling people that she can't give the impression that she is against Donald Trump because she intends to win that vote. I'm not kidding. Yes, they are that delusional. She intends to win that vote. This was her entire political strategy. Win that vote and then add the Mitt Romney voter back to the coalition. The Lincoln Project vote. The John Weaver vote. That was her plan for a winning political coalition. Well, now that's essentially out the window. It became real clear it's out the window. So she really has no choice now but to fracture, to divide and conquer. Because people ask me all the time, what are they thinking? Why do they, because really they can't, unity's out the window. It's out the window. They know you didn't fall for the scheme. The Trump voter didn't fall for the scheme. So now the only way to do it is to divide and conquer. And she's trying to lock up that lane before anybody else decides to get in it. This way, anybody else that jumps in the race are really just going to fracture the vote she knows she cannot win. And then if she was to win, which, by the way, there's a snowball. Let me put this nicely.
Thank you.
Nikki, there is a snowball's chance in hell that you are going to be the Republican nominee in 2024. I don't know whether you got a hidden stash of Quaaludes that convince you in your delusion, but you are not going to be the nominee in 2024. Unless, honestly, the only way that could happen is if there are sincere, MAGA bona fide candidates that just shred that vote up. That's the only way she could possibly win, which is what they're thinking. I just don't think that that's going to happen. Plus, there were viable Republicans. Think about this for a second. There were viable alternatives to Donald Trump in 2016 that were largely decent figures. Scott Walker, until he let that wing of the Republican Party destroy his career with George Will's wife, running his ridiculous, not ready for primetime campaign. There was Marco Rubio, right? A lot of people liked him. You had the Shapiro crowd fawning over Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, and you had Jeb. All the establishment wanted, and yet they couldn't cobble enough together to stop Donald Trump. And Chris Christie, until New Hampshire, was in Trump's lane. That was Trump's lane. The hard-talking, new kind of Republican. He had Bridgegate weighing him down, along with 300 excess pounds. All right. So, no, I'm getting, Laura, the time for niceness is over. In which case, I want to read something, because there is no time for this nice man, this nice guy crap. All right. So I'm going to read something. Yeah, here it is. So this guy, John Hayward, writes this tweet, and some of you may have watched. I think it's worth reading this to you folks, because this goes with what we've been saying, the war for the Republican Party. And I think regarding Republicans, this is probably the most profound Twitter thread I have seen in quite a while. Okay, John, I hope you don't mind. I don't even know you, but I don't think so anyway, do I? Nope. Writer for Breitbart. I don't know you, John. I'm sorry. Your name did sound familiar, but I don't personally know John, so I hope he doesn't mind here. But in any event, this is, the term must read doesn't cut it. Regarding what's going on in the Republican Party right now, a lot of terms are going to sound very familiar to you, because he is addressing what we have been talking about for a long time, like the construct, right? He just calls it something else, but he's dead on. All right. Is it possible to fight against totalitarian statists without ever compromising conservative principles? Is it better to play fair and constantly lose? Can you grapple with monsters without becoming a monster? That's the question at the heart of the schism on the right. And I would just say this. I think that some Trump voters would obviously not agree with the premise that Donald Trump is a monster, right? He's rough around the edges. He's callous. He's crass, but he's not a monster. If he was a monster, then he would have done a lot worse with those people at the border. If he was a monster, is Adolf Hitler, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. All right. This schism long predates Trump. But it became much more heated during his 2016 presidential campaign and presidency, right? It's a question asked in many ways on a variety of subjects. It launches endless accusations of hypocrisy, insincerity, opportunism, Nikki, foolishness, and weakness. All right. And I threw in the Nikki there. That was a C. Right. One of the big problems with academic conservatism is that it acts like the great debate over how to order our society, or any society for that matter, has only just begun. As if we can hold an enlightened conversation between right and left over how much freedom we should have and how big the state should be. Right? He's totally right. Many works of passive academic conservatism make for stimulating reading, and they'd be great stuff to bring along if you were leading a band of refugees onto an island to build a new society from scratch. But they have little relevance to the desperate battle we're actually in. Right? You could find a bunch over across the room over there on the wall on my little mini library. They make for great reading. When the founders were putting together this republic, they read up on everything. I mean, these were well-read people. Let's read Cicero and see how the Romans screwed up. Let's look at what happened with ancient Greece, right? I mean, this is what they did because they were building a country. We're at a point in our country's history where we're supposed to have agreed on basic principles already. We're supposed to have agreed with basic tenets, basic elements to our social contract. Not re-debating them. We're in a phase now where we're protecting those basic principles from threats to them. It's very different. The prescription is not for the correct illness, is what I'm talking about here. I agree with what he's saying. They're treating something that is a symptom of it and not the actual disease. Okay? Anyway. We're up against a totalitarian ideology that has already corrupted every single institution of American society. We're not beginning with a high-minded constitutional debate with the left. We're fighting a desperate last-ditch battle to preserve what little remains of free speech. And he's beginning to talk about the construct, as you know, if you are a watcher of the show. How do you fight back against cancel culture? Do you refuse to participate, living by your principles and giving high-minded free passes to left-wingers who commit speech crimes? Or do you insist they get canceled and ruined too, forcing them to play by their own rules? And I just want to say one of the, particularly we were talking about Nikki Haley and the donors, one of these donors had said something to me that was pretty impactful. Let me just put it that way. And the Republican donor base that doesn't like Donald Trump or didn't like Donald Trump or wished he went about it a different way, they couldn't really fully grasp the entire platform he was running on because they don't live like you live. Okay. And he told me that you have to make, and this was during the Trump administration when he was saying, what can Trump do to make more understand? And it was only like 2 years into the Trump administration because this is when Nikki started making her rounds. And he said, you have to make them suffer the consequences of their actions and their policies and their beliefs the way you have suffered, the way Americans have suffered. So, the Mitch McConnells may be appalled. He has an Asian wife. He may be appalled by the idea that, we shouldn't open up social services to new immigrants who come to the country illegally, right? And he may chuckle with Paul Ryan at the Mayflower the day after the inauguration about how they're going to stop Trump at every turn when it comes to immigration. But Mitch McConnell's children are not the ones who are being burdened by an education system, overburdened by an influx of new arrivals who cannot be cared for, while at the same time caring at the appropriate level for a U.S.-born citizen child who deserves that social services for those social services and those public services first. Education is a legitimate police power. When you start to sacrifice the benefit of a fundamental role of government for a U.S. citizen at the expense of your virtue, then you're starting to breach the social contract. Your job is to uphold this part of the bargain. If you become too virtuous to do that at your best possible ability to do so, your highest ability to do so, then you really don't deserve the other end of the social contract, which is obedience.
Sorry.
That is your mandate. You take care of X, Y, and Z, and I will behave A, B, C. That is the social contract. That is the entire point. Otherwise, you're really asking for us to go back to a state of nature. Because you're not upholding it, which is what happens to governments and societies. When governments fail to uphold their end of the social contract. Why? Because you wanted to feel morally superior? All right, so getting back into it. How do you fight back against cancel culture, right? Or do you make them play by their own rules? During the Tea Party years, the activists themselves were sometimes attacked as hypocrites if they used any benefits of the Leviathan state they claimed to oppose, collect a single dollar of government benefits, and you supposedly lost the moral stature to rail against deficit spending. From these examples and many others, conservatives must learn that we are not criticizing the system from the outside. We are within it and must fight on the very hostile economic and political battlefield that has been created for us. That is the construct. All right, he's going to get into it more. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, I could see probably some first-timers right now. That is the construct. The status quo is created, has constructed an environment that you are forced to operate within. The entire point of that environment is to perpetuate the status quo. It is not to meet your needs, to meet your needs. It is not to be responsive good government. It is to perpetuate bureaucracy. It's to perpetuate status quo authority. We are not at the beginning of a great drama about the relationship between people and the state. We're well past the curtain call on the third act, and things are looking very grim for those who value liberty and tradition. The right played no role in writing the script, and this is where a lot of anger for Republicans come from. Mitch McConnell has been an office holder for years. Lindsey Graham was around, ladies and gentlemen. He was a yes vote on impeachment in the U.S. House of Representatives when they impeached William Jefferson Clinton. During the culture wars in the 1990s, what the hell did these people do to write the rules?
Nothing.
To help write the rules, to construct what is now the modern construct. What did they do to shape that environment to be more favorable to the people they beg for votes and money? They did nothing. And now the dirty little secret is they are helpless to help you. And they are doing whatever they can to claw and gnaw and scratch and hold on. Because they don't really have a purpose for you anymore. They serve at the pleasure of their benefactors. Lindsey Graham, I'll use a better word because I don't want Madam Censor over here to yell at me. Lindsey Graham lives and breathes and casts votes for the defense industry. He doesn't serve the people of South Carolina anymore. Not their way of life, not their values, and not their children's future. He's a conservative, right? He believes in the conservative fiscal and social values of conservatism. When was the last time Lindsey Graham voted against a debt ceiling hike? Deficit spending? When Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House. That's when. He hasn't represented his state for years. He has been living off of the general binary choice that comes with U.S. elections. The Tea Party did try to primary him years ago, by the way. But, he used the tools at his disposal, the establishment's disposal, what John is talking about right now. They smeared the hell out of the Tea Party movement, and the Tea Party was really filled with a bunch of political novices who didn't understand how to keep their image clean. And they got tore up pretty quickly. And nobody's ever really mounted a decent challenge since. And now we had the last election, and, he kissed Donald Trump's butt. To make sure there wasn't a viable challenger, he kissed Donald Trump's butt. He pretended to go after Crossfire Hurricane and those in it. He pretended to go after the obvious prosecutorial misconduct in the Mueller investigation, he kissed butt. He was very supportive of Robert Mueller in the beginning, for those who have a very short memory. Everybody knew that was a farce to begin with. Everybody knew it was a farce, folks. But with the help of the likes of like daytime Fox News, they were able to get away with that. All right. Anyway, we have already watched. Or no, here we go. We are not having a spirited discussion about how to steer the ship of the state. He's using a ship as a way to describe the construct. Okay. We are not having a spirited discussion with the left about how to steer the ship of the state. The ship's crew is entirely against us. Most of the compartments are locked, and you'll be thrown overboard if you say anything about the rapidly approaching iceberg. That is how I, very, very similar to how I use the CBO to explain to you how this construct is just built to self-perpetuate. The CBO was not established as some nonpartisan budget projection or economic projection committee. They were established to for the advancement of the Great Society, to basically justify and apologize for big government spending for these social welfare programs, okay? And then to keep them around when somebody else did finally come along and DC didn't like them. So the permanent government needed to stop whatever grandiose ideas they had of reform. So the CBO is always there when you need them to lie about Obamacare, like they did. They lied about Obamacare, folks. I mean, and by the way, with the help of a Washington Post reporter, they all met at the White House. It was a great little thing about how they were going to put this together and lie to you about what Obamacare was. They lied about the impact of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And I'll even defend George W. Bush for a second. They lied about Medicare Part D. The only Medicare program you could say has some sort of private sector mechanism. They cannot score dynamically. They don't understand the impact free markets may have or economic policy has on budget projections, on economic growth. They're static and static alone. Even if they try to dynamically score, they get it wrong every single time. That's not their job. Their job is not to give lawmakers a truly nonpartisan analysis of a bill's impact. Their job is to stop the lawmakers from passing it. That's their job. Or to pass it if it leads to bigger bureaucracy, because that means a larger, more powerful government. That is how the construct works. And he's using a ship. We have already watched totalitarianism consume a thoroughly demoralized and destabilized American society. Now we are watching totalitarianism slide inexorably into authoritarianism. We already watched that, John. I hate to tell you we're here. And you know what comes after that. All right. We cannot stop that process by politely objecting to it. He's arguing it is not easy to fight a battle on those terms without losing sight of peacetime principles. For generations now, the American people have been bludgeoned into submission by Alinsky tactics that turn their lofty principles and beloved traditions against them. That is beautifully put, because it's 100% true. 100. The barbarians camped outside the gates sneered and said, if you were so civilized, you wouldn't need walls and gates to keep us out, unquote. That is a reference to those who don't know, to Rome. And obviously, we all know how that ended. And so the gates were opened and the walls torn down to be replaced by higher, uglier prison walls built by the victorious invaders. We're at the point where people on the right must think hard about how grand strategy and short-term tactics. We must change the momentum of the history before it sweeps this country and all of the civilized world into a darkness it cannot escape without fire and bloodshed. There is no place left for the gentlemen losers, the directors of failure theater, the grifters, the arrogant remnant, smugly convinced they can emerge from their bunkers one day to a thunderous applause for having been right all along. That is the Nikki Haley, Mitt Romney wing, the Tim Scott wing. But there is also no room for fighting blindly, for angrily lashing out to no good purpose, for energy wasted on pointless fights, for vulgar displays that alienate the public and make our situation even worse. The angry loser is no more effective than the gentleman loser. We're not in anything close to a fair ideological fight. No, you're not. That is why we have developed words like media handicap as observers, not as participants. It's not bias. That is a decades stale reference to what the media does in this country. It is a handicap. You guys play 9-ball? You like pool? The media's job is to give the Democrats the 6 on every election. Republicans have to hope they either scratch or miss sinking one and then run the table.
But they never do.
Because they're gentlemen losers. So like to keep with the illustration here.
Yes.
So the Democrat would scratch and then Lindsey Graham would say, that's okay, you can do it again.
Yes.
Right? No, friend. Here's the cue. Redo it. I'm a gentleman. Go ahead. You go ahead. Get another try.
True story.
Trump is like, are you stupid?
Yes.
And there's Donald Trump. Are you dumb? The shark in the corner.
Mhm.
Are you an idiot? Can I have your wallet? Can you just give me your wallet?
Let's just call it a day.
And they hate him for it because there he is in the corner shouting about
This is
how
you
stupid
do
and
it.
weak you are.
Yes. And shows it
Right.
on a grand scale.
And I don't, I mean, I tweeted this out. You guys should, I don't have to read the rest of it, but he's added to it since actually. And it's worth going on. I wanted to stick to the principles that he was talking about with the construct because it very, very neatly wraps up who these people are. And here's the dirty little secret. They're not gentlemen or women. That's my point, though. They pretend to be the gentlemen losers, and that's the term the fighting right has come to use on them, right? And it's like Mitt Romney is such a gentleman loser, right? John McCain, what a gentleman and a loser, right? They're not gentlemen or gentle women. They are backstabbing, low value having, no character having pieces of garbage. And I don't know where this myth came from that politicians are good people. They're the worst kinds of people. They live off the life force of the everyday working American. And when we come back, it's 12 o'clock. I went on for an hour without a break because it's important you know of two things to summarize, or a couple of things. None of this is random. It's always been in the work. And this Politico piece is part of a larger thing that was plotted, obviously, because that's where they go when they try these hits. Nikki Haley and Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott, it's like the whole South Carolina, deeply red state, or getting less red, but a red state represented by these people. The Democrat, this completely reinforces what I've been saying all week long. And why voters are so angry. Republicans are so angry. The Democratic Party represents their voters. The Republican Party does not. And when they see that disparity, and by they I mean the Republican establishment, when they see that disparity between who represents, who's in DC, right? Who do the voters send there? And what voters at home believe. It leads to their own delusions that they believe. Like they're somehow a majority. Nikki, you have no constituency. There is definitely no national constituency. I even question whether or not you could win a statewide election in the state of South Carolina against a viable alternative candidate.
Her desperateness reminds me of Kasich.
She reminds me of absolutely. There's a lot of things there. The way and this like pretentious, phony, oh, I guess I'll have to save the country, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's John all day, right? I guess I have to, this son of a mailman is going to have to just save you from your stupid selves. I guess I'll step forward. That's how my daddy raised me. By the way, did I tell you he was a mailman?
How many times?
Same thing with Nikki.
But I'm telling you.
Although I can't touch that because, I'm a guy, a white man, so I can't get into it. But we'll hear that same spiel from her, only in a different light, right?
Well, Nikki is just the right version of Hillary Clinton.
That's a great point. Pound for reminding me on that. Laura said this earlier, and in fact said it a while ago, actually, when we were doing a story, which you can read on People's Pundit Daily if you want to read the backstory. And we even call her out for trying to pretend like she's a president supporter. All right. And it wasn't nasty. It was just to tell you guys the truth. This is January 3rd of 2019. Nikki Haley intends to run for president in 2024, not against Donald Trump.
Look out.
GOP donor, quote, she is very clear about her intentions. And by the way, I will just say this. Nikki Haley, this is the quote. Nikki Haley is already telling donors she is running for president in 2024. One source who spoke to PPD on the condition of anonymity said. She stressed it would only be, quote, sooner if something were to happen with Trump, unquote. And what they were referring to, the South Carolina delegation, was whether Donald Trump was either impeached, but not removed and politically torn, or whether something had come up that they couldn't get rid of him on and that, damaged him again, right? So let's say the impeachment permanently damaged him, which it did not politically. Without the cabal of corporate America, corporate media, big government, and big tech all coming together to change how we conduct elections in this country, it would have been a landslide of epic proportions. No president has received that many votes before, on the ground votes, since most of his voters went out and voted on election day. Would never have happened. He would have ended up, Joe Biden would have ended up somewhere in the ballpark of Hillary Clinton. It would have been a landslide. Anyway, worth noting, the news of her refusal to challenge President Trump will disappoint many in the D.C. Republican establishment who welcome a primary challenge to Mr. Trump. That was Tim Scott we were referring to. Just to blow it all up now. That was Tim Scott, who wanted him to face a primary challenger. He wanted him weak up. The truth is they all did, but he was just more outspoken about it. And he believed Nikki Haley would be a perfect candidate to do so in the event Donald Trump was weakened enough to challenge. Lindsey Graham didn't even want to be caught in private mumbling about whether or not, Donald Trump should be challenged. What he would do is really even worse. Oh, no. We got to support the president. But listen for a second. I think you should hear out my colleague from South Carolina. That's how he would do it. That's how Lindsey rolls. Oh, no, I'm not talking about love Donald. Golf win the other day. But just listen to this story. She may be making a few points. Like, it's incoherent. You either do or you don't. But that's Lindsey. That's who he is. All right? Anyway, they believe, very important, the Republican Party would be best served in the long term if the incumbent president ends up losing his re-election bid in 2020. Mrs. Haley's name was floated repeatedly as a potential challenger. We got this from multiple people. One that gave us times, locations, dates. That's why I tell you, Lindsey, I dare you to deny what I'm saying right now. I freaking dare you. I would respect people more if they were just like, I'm a two-faced piece of crap. I don't like Donald Trump. I think the party would be, even Tim Scott, I could have respected him if he was like, I don't like Donald Trump. I don't think he's good for the party. I think that we should move forward with a different brand, a different image.
At least you're honest.
Yeah, at least you're honest. Nikki Haley, if she was like, listen, I served at the pleasure of the president and I did my best to carry out his agenda. However, I deeply disagreed with him on a number of things and I don't like his attitude. I don't like him as a guy, as a person. And I think we should go our own way. That is not, she's pulling this crap only now. But that is not the story she was telling everybody before the man was already gone from office at his most vulnerable.
What they want, both sides want, is Donald Trump to admit defeat. And I'm going to tell you why. The Democrats want Donald Trump to admit defeat because they don't want Joe Biden to be seen as illegitimate, which he is by many people in this country. The largest number we have ever polled. All right. And that shouldn't come as a surprise to you, since the only, or one of the few only, accurate polls surveying all the battleground states we showed you before the election. 4 in 10, at least, in every battleground state. Some much higher, some lower. But at least 4 in 10 in every battleground state believed that this election would be filled with fraud and illegitimate, that they were trying to steal it from Donald Trump. That was the pre-election opinion. And Democrats want Donald Trump to admit defeat so they don't have to have the Capitol surrounded by the military because they're terrified they have lost regime credibility.
Which they have.
And the right wants Donald Trump, not the right, because they're not the right, they're phony. The DC Republican rhino, whatever you want to call it.
The faux right.
The faux right. The DC Senate group. They want him to admit that he lost because they want to be able to tell the Republican base, I told you so. We don't need him. We don't need that brand to get a majority. He lost. So you might as well just try it another way. We can win those women back if you only concede that you lost. Didn't work for David Perdue, didn't work for Kelly Loeffler, but shh. Let's try it another way. We told you so. Let's come back.
Repackaging.
It's just a re-gifting. That's all they got. They've been sending around the same damn coffee maker for years. Changing some busted old coffee mate. You know? They just been changing the paper up and giving it to their voters every Christmas. They can't even spring for a base model level Keurig. Or at least the new Mr. Coffee. There's nothing wrong with Mr. Coffee.
Nothing wrong with
Can I get a new one, please? Something that appeals? Something that has some aroma? Anyway, I hope you guys take away the main takeaways here, really, which is that they lie a lot. And this was nothing about this is some new revelation. They've just been liars and betrayers from the beginning, and they're doing what pieces of garbages do. People with no character do. Look for the opportune time to get their revenge, to get what they want. They climb over others to get to where they are because they cannot pull themselves up the rope themselves. So they have to find all of these little moments. All right? Well, they don't like Hannibal being at the gates. And they feel that, back to the reference, they feel like Hannibal's at the gate. And they need to do something. Well, I hate to tell you, Nikki, but I think you'll be telling your children little bad, sad, scary bedtime stories about Hannibal being at the gates if they're not good little girls and boys for a time to come. Because you're not getting that party back. You'll have to start your own Republican Party. And it probably will get like 10 million votes. Maybe 15 million. And the rest is going to Trump. And eventually you won't be viewed as viable anymore. And they'll swallow you. This is your future. This is your future. All right. So here we go. It is 12:10. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. I want to go over the consumer sentiment. Then we'll get to Q&As. Okay. Consumer sentiment is very important. We've been neglecting economic stories of late. And that is not good because there's a real problem with the economy right now. That's number one. There's a real problem with the economy. And number two, it's happened under Biden, really, since the election was resolved. Because there were still a lot of people, especially working class people, who were holding out hope that Donald Trump would win, would pull it off. Something would happen. People would see the light, whatever it may be. Republicans would defend him. They were. And in the end, that never happened. And it is only taking December, January for these people to acknowledge, and you can see it crystal clear in a lot of these surveys. So I don't want to ignore it anymore. All right. So when we come back, we'll get into that. All right. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your friendly neighborhood down to earth host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button. Helps our little funny algorithm. And don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. If you're watching on Facebook Live, which I see there is a bunch of you today, like the page, People's Pundit Daily. We very much appreciate it. And that will also tell you when we're going to go live. On locals, you saw what happened today in the beginning of the show. We're messing around with this thing because I can't stand this platform. Yeah, you got it though. Yeah, but I owe them a video. And because of this going, it's got to be reconciled this week. But that's where we're going to be spending more and more time. I'm telling you right now, in case you haven't noticed, you can always follow me on Twitter. I'll be there until Jack throws me off at peoples_pundit. But we are trying to migrate as many people from these platforms. And because it's getting more authoritarian out there. Project Veritas was removed. Again, Politico. Hippies came from Politico. On why? They were known for spreading misinformation. Really, what? What example did she give over there? None. That would be something a journalist does. She just threw that out there, and that's it. Now you just got to accept the fact that Project Veritas was peddling misinformation, so you're gone. Incredible. Incredible. They haven't been able to point to something James O'Keefe did wrong since Acorn. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, it's incredible. This is coming from a bunch of people who pushed a fake conspiracy theory. I'll talk about it more after the break. All right, Laura's giving me the cue. She's like, geez, now you're 15 minutes past 12. All right, we'll be back 2 minutes with Q&A, with consumer confidence, whole lot more on Inside the Numbers. Stay tuned.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker.
You know, NJ Pat, before I get into my little spiel here on consumer sentiment, I love that idea about nonviolent criminals being able to join the military and having can't get waivers, but it should be much easier to be able to even expunge their records with military service. And I'll tell you why, for a host of reasons. But the process of political maturation, all right, which if you're a conservative or a Republican, you'd want, because it leads to more likelihood of voting Republican. We studied the political maturation of ethnic Catholics during the World Wars and beyond, and particularly Irish and Italian versus Hispanic, which is happening now, by the way, and will or will not continue to happen depending on the direction of the Republican Party. And political maturation is greatly sped up by military service. The correlation is high. It's very significant. So we, in our recent years, have seen new waves of migrating Puerto Ricans that vote more liberal. But years and years ago, we saw very high enlistment rates during the World War Puerto Rican generation, which turned into less democratic voting group. All right. It helps them get away, too, from what we found is that it helps them get away from the metro urban machines. It helps them get independence from that. And that leads to a higher likelihood to vote Republican. Okay. So it's very interesting stuff. That was what my second book was going to be on, and I just never got around to it. I just was like, if I do write another one, it'll be something that is more light, not light, but more light kind of hearted, I guess is a great way to put it. Not lighthearted, but something for more people to read, as opposed to the very heavy philosophical and data. Yeah. Of course, we'll have data because I can't help myself, but that's who I am. But it would have like stories too. All right. Speaking of data, let's get to this real quick before we talk about a little bit more about the authoritarian stuff before we get into Q&As. I'm going to get a lot of those in because I see them racked up. All right. Not good. Consumer sentiment falls again in February. Workers' expectations under Biden fuel the dive. And I'm going to read the masthead, show you the graph, and then I'll tell you what Richard Curtin, who hates Donald Trump, had to say. Okay. The survey of consumers' preliminary reading on consumer sentiment for February fell from 79 to 76.2, far below the consensus forecast. Guys, just 6 months ago, or 6 months before the election, just before the election in September, consumer sentiment hit a 6-month high. It was rebounding strongly, as was consumer confidence after the lockdown, the COVID shutdown. So it was a post-pandemic rebound. The decline since the resolution of the 2020 U.S. presidential election comes almost exclusively from declining expectations for the future among the working class. Okay, here is the 1 year. That sucks. You can clearly see when the election kicked off, it was heading back up. All right, you have the main line, which is the sentiment index itself. You have the consumer, the current index. How do you feel right now? And then you have the expectations index. You can clearly see what happened here. There were people in the working class holding out hope in the last 2 months, particularly the prelim for February and the reading for January, the first full reading since the resolution of the election. And it was a given Joe Biden would take the presidency, have been bad. So has consumer confidence. Okay. Richard Curtin says consumer sentiment edged downward. It edged downward this time. I mean, this guy's unbelievable. 3-point drop. It edged downward. Go back and read all of this. It could hit record highs, which it did under Donald Trump. And he'd say something like, so consumer confidence hasn't been this high since, but, tariffs are really concerning. You guys are a total tool for the Chamber of Commerce. All right. Yeah. Sorry. Tough crap. All right. With the entire loss concentrated in the expectation index and among households with incomes below $75,000.
Sorry.
Disregard the Aristotle what? Oh, okay. Never mind. Households with incomes in the bottom third reported significant setbacks in their current finances, with fewer of these households mentioning recent income gains than anything since 2014. You hear what I just said? I'm going to read that again. Households with incomes in the bottom third reported significant setbacks in their current finances. I thought you just said it was the future expectation index, Richard. Because if you look in, it wasn't just the future expectations index. The current economic index fell too, about a half a point, which was also driven by the working class. Anyway, they mentioned with fewer of the households mentioning gains in income, the lowest anytime since 2014. I might remark, it may be a good time to remark that under Donald Trump, that particular part of the index, that question, hit an all-time high with this group. With good cause. That cause being wages were growing at 3% or greater for 20 consecutive months and for the first time since before the Great Recession. The personal income and outlays report was booming compared to the Obama years. The first year of gains under Donald Trump was greater than the entire 8 years under Barack Obama. By the way, Richard Hyde, you might have known Hyde traits, Hyde characteristics, right? We use them in polling sometimes, and we definitely use them in voir dire research to build profiles on what lawyers want, and what jurors don't want for certain cases, which we did with Barnes quite a bit. A lot of work with Robert Barnes on that. Democrats were unwilling to tell the truth. Liberals are more likely to ignore the reality of a situation. All right. And he is a liberal, by the way. But he just reported what he found. Liberals are more likely to ignore the reality of a situation if it does not comport with their worldview. And you could see that on full display in the Consumer Confidence Index, also known as the Survey of Consumers by the University of Michigan, over the last 4 years under Donald Trump. No matter how good their personal finances were, no matter how high it went among Republicans and independents, Democrats would say something negative. They would add a negative contribution to the Consumer Sentiment Index, even though their finances were better than they have been in a very long time, and in most cases, ever before. In many cases, I should say, better than ever before. They were unwilling to tell the truth about their finances because of Donald Trump, because Orange Man bad. Because Orange Man bad. And some of the most illuminating findings in the Survey of Consumers is by party. Consumer sentiment by party. Expectations by party. Current economic conditions by party. Some of the most amazing and entertaining. Really, I mean, it's entertaining because it's incredible. You cannot have a disconnect in reality by party if you want to have a stable civil society. They couldn't even bring themselves to tell the truth about their finances because they hated the president. And I don't know, were consciously realizing that consumer sentiment may be a positive for him. Crazy stuff. But it comports with it jives with what Richard Hyde found in his research. Moral characteristics. They are more likely to basically refuse to acknowledge reality if it doesn't comport with their worldview. I don't know. What do you say to that? You have a moment of silence. I don't really know. All right, let's look at, so there's that. So check that out on PPD. It's going to be updated with other stuff. I will just note that he says presumably a new round of stimulus payments will reduce financial hardships among those with the lowest incomes. That is a textbook disconnect. Obviously, he doesn't live like those Americans. Another round of stimulus won't do diddly squat for their future expectations. The only thing that helped them, and we know this from years of his own damn survey data collected over years. It's your survey, Richard. The only thing that causes serious, significant, and sustained improvements among, especially this group of people, but among the expectations index and the current conditions index, is when real economic change is happening. Giving somebody a stimulus payment so they could go out and buy a new TV or pay an election is not solving their problem. Only when they got a better paying job, they realized upward mobility. They got a raise at work. Their wages were rising. Their salaries were rising. That is the only way you can see real improvement. The rest of it is a Band-Aid at best. A Band-Aid at best. Obama's stimulus didn't do jack. The other rounds of stimuluses didn't do jack. And certainly this insult of a stimulus payment that is an excuse to pack a bill with left-wing favors and rent-seeking pigs to the trough is not going to do anything. Maybe if you are again, professional class Zoomer, a pull on your tubin, you think that's going to have some kind of impact in these people's lives. That is a crumb, to use Nancy Pelosi's term, and an insult. An insult. Won't do diddly squat, Rich. It won't do diddly squat. All right, let's get into some questions. It's Q&A with the People's Fund. All right. How much do these people in D.C. underestimate Trump and his connection to his base? Completely. Not completely. That's not true. A lot. Because they would probably convict him if they weren't scared of what it could do to the base. So there's that. But it doesn't mean they won't try to sabotage him. At this point now, I think their polling is telling them the same thing I've been telling you, which is that there are just too many people who hate their guts. And they may be concluding here that they don't really have a path forward with these voters. So the best thing to do is marginalize them and split and fracture them. That's their divide and conquer strategy. All right. Thoughts on the New York City mayor election? Andrew Yang, the next mayor. I would like Ray McGuire, anyone other than Scott Stringer, or a social justice warrior, though, SJW. I'd like to poll it before I give a real, idea on it. I will say that, I don't know. After all this time with the comrade, I don't know where New York City is at this point. Some of the results some of the results in like Kings County, even in the presidential election, were kind of stunning, right? I don't know. I hate to speculate. Maybe I could poll it. I don't know. We'd see. There's a lot of other things going on. I think that California is it. I think Gavin Newsom, if you want to take out if the right wants to take out some left winger, Gavin Newsom's still going to be difficult to beat, but I mean, geez, this is not looking good for him. I wonder how many of these people who tell us they disapprove of him would really vote against him, since they have such a long voting record for Democrats. But New York City's an example where we have seen that It was much whiter back then, but I don't know. It's that I'm not sure that matters, because it's the working Hispanic that's killing Gavin Newsom in California right now. Interestingly. And do I still have it up? Yeah. Well, I showed you guys last week, only 16.7, I believe. Strongly approve. That's the final number from what I showed you that we were polling last week. Only 16.7 Hispanics in California strongly approve of him. But another 30% somewhat approve of him. The only racial group Gavin Newsom has majority support, if I remember correctly, is African Americans. And he's got a white base, but he's at 46.5%. We have never had Gavin Newsom that low. I polled the gubernatorial race in 2018, was dead on. It was a very crowded race. the first round. I was dead on there, and I was dead on within the margin on every single candidate. So I have a pretty good grip, a pretty good confidence, a high degree of confidence that I have a pretty good grip on the state of California as a pollster. It's fun. It's huge. There's a lot of groups, a lot of regions. So it's actually one of the more interesting states to poll. And he's in trouble. Believe me, he is definitely under 50%. Mid 40s, high 40s at best, considering the sampling error. So it depends on the candidate there, but it's hard lift, but it's possible if things keep continuing to head downhill for him. All right. Is Cruz a viable presidential candidate? And just to get you, Rob, just to tell you, I mean, I really would like to poll it. I hate speculating on things I don't have data on. All right. Cruz, I can tell you, some of these donors that we were talking about earlier in the show with Nikki Haley, especially one in general, meets with Cruz a lot. I mean, talks with him a lot. He's not as solid as he is in public when he's talking privately to donors. I mean, talks a good game. That's what they tell me. He talks a good game. But ultimately, when they ask him, what are you going to do about this? It's always waffling. I don't think he could win the Rust Belt. I don't see a state in the Rust Belt Donald Trump won, and either won and won again, or won and failed to hold on to this time. I'm telling you guys, you'd be making a huge mistake to look at Iowa and Ohio and say, wow, Trump romped it there twice. I guess they're just red states. They're not. They're Trump red states. I mean, Jim couldn't pull it off against Sherrod Brown, even though Governor DeWine won the gubernatorial election. Democrats made congressional gains in Iowa in 2018. I'm telling you, it's a mistake to think those are just flat out Republican red and someone like a Ted Cruz could win them too. I don't think so. Ted Cruz is not a populist. All right, Tony, when you all get to Q&A, can you ask Rich about how different results are in a wave election compared to normal? I was trying to explain the difference between Manchin barely winning and Cruz barely. That's a great question. I mean, you're all asking great questions, but 18 was not a wave. 20 wasn't a wave either. You don't lose some in the House, gain some in the Senate, win a White House, and that's a wave. That's not a wave. Winning the House, losing Senate seats is not a wave. A wave is when there's a uniform national mood that swoops into, or sweeps through basically every branch, every elected branch, or what at any level, because we are talking about legislatures most times, right? But at every level, federal, both houses federally, even legislatures, down ticket, that's a wave. Watching Democrats take the House back, but then losing the most number of Senate seats, Senate incumbents, since 1962 is not a wave. One more seat. If McSally would have hung on against Kyrsten Sinema, right, you would have to have gone back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt for an incumbent an incumbent party to do that well in the Senate. Okay, so it was no wave, no blue wave. We haven't seen a blue wave since 2008. That's the last time there was a blue wave. Even Obama being reelected was 2012. And he still gained some House seats back, but Republicans were able to fight back certain challenges. That still really couldn't have been considered a wave, because that is considered a traditional incumbent reelection cycle, which is when you see the incumbent win back some of the losses from the first term incumbent midterm, but not enough to take the chamber back. Which is why November presented like a very typical incumbent reelection. Until Georgia fended off most of the challenges in the upper chamber, took back more seats than expected in the lower chamber. There is no other one to apply it to. That looks like a typical incumbent reelection for a president. All right, so that's a great question, and the answer to people is Really, we haven't seen a blue wave since '08. A wave is a national mood that sweeps through federal and state typically, but both chambers in legislatures. Okay. And if the White House, of course, is up on the ballot that year, it would definitely take the White House with it too. There is no such thing as a wave that has one chamber going the direction, the opposite direction as the upper chamber. The lower chamber going in the opposite direction as the upper chamber chamber going in the whatever, vice versa. All right. Let me see. Mike Franklin, what is going to stop the establishment from stealing every election going forward? What happened to them for this one? You won't win in the courts. You won't win in the election. And again, that's the construct preventing you from affecting change. Okay. Which is very, very dangerous. This is not a good place to be in civil society. The people, I don't know what else to say, but the sovereign voter has to have some kind of recourse, right? And if they don't, like they elected Donald Trump in 2016 to affect change, the system went out of their way to prevent that change. Courts included, just like happened with the election. All right. And the entire system's rigged, corrupted against you, then that's a dangerous place in civil society. What's going to stop them is your activism. I mean, you have to get engaged again. We were just listening to Matt Brainerd, by the way, on War Room with Bannon. And he's doing something. He's doing, the goal is the same from what we are doing, but he's coming at it from a different way. So I would encourage you guys to check it out at least and see. But Matt's got some training coming up for just everybody, everyday people that you can sign up for and learn how to make a difference. We're coming at it from a different angle. February 18th, that's what I thought too. We're coming at it from a different angle, but what he's doing would greatly benefit what we're doing. And the ultimate goal is to force state legislators to take back their power to govern elections, to conduct elections, to set election law. That is their freaking job. The job of the governor is to simply enforce those laws. The job of the supervisor of elections in the local precincts and counties is to deploy the law as it stands, not to change it, not to let Mark Zuckerberg come in, stuff some money in your pocket, and for you to put out drop boxes and backdate ballots and allow other ballots to arrive when they're late, to allow registrations to arrive past the deadline, to turn a blind eye when a signature doesn't match, to turn a blind eye when your records indicate that voter is deceased, or when that voter put in a change of address flag 2, 4, 6, 8 years ago. That's what you can do. That's how you can prevent that. You have to get the legislature. And the good news is, like Robert and I said many times on What Are the Odds, the good news is we are getting their attention. So we have a lot of inquiries. Because why? They didn't care when it was Donald Trump. But now they know it's their own butts. And now they're worried. Watch how hard Gavin Newsom scrutinizes those signatures when it comes to the recount. Signatures will all of a sudden, the recall. Signatures will all of a sudden matter again. Watch how closely Republican legislature in, say, Georgia, the governor and the secretary of state in, say, Georgia, watch how closely they scrutinize those signatures when it comes to their butts.
Or what about the mail-in voting?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about. Or how long it goes. The state's not really. Mark my words, you're gonna hear this.
One day.
The state's not really set up for this. That was supposed to be a once in a time. And Michigan, a court in Michigan even went so far as to say this only has to deal with this election. It's incredible.
You can't even make it up.
So that's what's going to stop. The answer to that is you, Mike. You. All right. And you could start with Matt because he's doing something from
A ground.
grassroots level. Yeah, we're playing more of a behind the
need
scenes
to-
role, but
We need to
that
do
kind
this
of
together.
pressure
Yes.
is going to help us.
From the top
Because
and
when we
bottom.
can say, by the way, here's the results of what we did, this is how this is what we found, we're going to use this to make you pay, and that's what you'll be up against if you don't get on board. It will help to have someone like Matt with an army. So when we show them that paper, believe me, they've already been hearing you, and they know we're telling the truth, and then they know they don't want someone like me around. I will just say this: I'm not gonna say. Laura says there's probably a problem with mentioning a vendor out loud from this point on, but I will say this: I can't disclose how much any of our resources cost, because they may cost different for other clients. All
Yes.
right. And
it
it varies depending typically on how much you access. So I will be honest, we get a break from that particular vendor, which I'm not going to say out loud because I probably won't appreciate it. We get a reduced cost, as does anybody else who uses as much as we use. So if you're just somebody who flies by here and there and pulls a list once in a while for this or that, then you have to pay full price. If you are someone like us who's constantly pulling consistently, then they give you a better price. But mark my words, it still adds up. It is not cheap. It is otherwise everybody would be doing it. All right, to do what people like Matt did, what we did, is a lot. It's a lot. And Matt,
Whoa.
sorry about that. Matt, he spent a ton of money, a ton. I'm wondering why in Sam Hell, Laura, I can't add your screen there from when you're asking questions. Did you put something in there that blocks you from being shown on the screen? I don't understand what is going on here. You don't know, say. All right, next question. Let's add this, and let's pull this chart up while we're waiting for questions. What's the next one, Laura? Hit me.
Well, I was kind of, busy for a moment.
By the way, guys, you can toggle this data table at will here. You can take a download of a PNG image, a download of a JPEG, download of a PDF. You can even take an SVG if you want. You can take the data file itself if you want. You can get it in a CSV, or you can get it in XLS, an Excel spreadsheet, or you can just toggle the data table right here, okay? And it will show you some of the 1950s we don't have full data for, but if you keep scrolling down, you will see that that's not us, that's them. They didn't conduct a survey every month. It was a quarterly survey for many years, okay? Then it went to monthly, as you can see. All right, first column being the regular index, second column being the current conditions index, third column being the expected. Any graph on People's Pundit Daily, which is going to ramp up again with this kind of data, any graph, and you will see something even cooler. It'll be almost completely interactive news. It's going to be dope, but I'm not going to say any more than that. Laura's idea. All right.
You better not give away
I
my
won't give it
ideas.
away. Yeah, Joseph A. Banks is up there because I love Joseph A. Banks. Damn right I do.
And no, they are not a supporter of the show.
And no, that right. Oh my God. And no, they do not advertise on the show. They just happen to be on there right now because they're looking at they're doing what Google does, look at my history, and just decide to show me ads on my own website. But anyway, moving along.
All right. So did you answer Bill Levin's question when I was gone?
Let's see.
About
I
Samuel.
got to the
Why Samuel is your favorite book in the Bible?
Oh no, I didn't get there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'd call it my. Where is that?
It's all the way at the top.
Is it?
Keep
How
going.
the heck did I miss that?
Because you're scrolling way.
Okay.
There you go.
How likely is it DeWine is primaried in Ohio?
That's the other one.
So yeah, I would say that Ohio's bench is not very deep right now. Okay, and I don't know that question yet, and I'm not sure he's a top target. The top target as far as governors go would definitely be Brian Kemp. He has to be made an example out of. It's not okay to cower the way he cowered and to cave the way he caved, and then flip the script and do it because it'll benefit you, right? Like that's it's really unforgivable. So he basically told voters to go pound salt, and he didn't care that a majority of the state believed that the state did not conduct the election with integrity and was stolen. I mean, we asked this question in Georgia. The majority of voters in Georgia believe that the election was stolen, that Donald Trump won the state of Georgia, and you ignored it. I mean, I don't know how you do that if you're a legitimate governor. I don't know how you do that. And then turn around and tell them that they're, believing conspiracy theories and they're not accurate, only later to flip-flop and want to protect yourself and your own political viability by citing the very same thing. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. Liz Cheney has to be another priority. And the reason why Newsom should be a priority to Republicans is because he is the poster boy for COVID. And he, if you're a Trump supporter, you should hate his guts, or at least, blame him for a big part of this, because he is the governor of an enormous state that has an enormous impact on the overall economic national numbers. So every month when that indicator came out, it was ugly, the biggest decline in history. Understand Gavin Newsom not only contributed to that, but he also contributed to the slower recovery than we expected. Now, a lot of things bounce back quicker than expected, but understand, without Gavin Newsom basically strangling commerce in his state for politics, for political reasons, not because he was following science or data or the experts, but because he was doing it to win an election. Just like he killed the order once he realized he was going to be recalled. He hurt the numbers moving forward. The insured unemployment number, we cited California almost every week when the unemployment report came out. The weekly unemployment claims report I'm talking about. Weekly unemployment insurance claims by the Department of Labor. That insured unemployment rate hit an all-time low under Donald Trump and hovered there damn near his entire presidency. It shot up to an all-time high, and you could see it want to come back down, but it couldn't. Not to where it was. Why? It did come down quite a bit, by the way. It just didn't come down as much as it could have because of Governor Newsom, Governor Cuomo, Governor Whitmer. 3 repeat offenders. Nevada was another one, by the way. By the way, we just went there. What an absolute, not that I'm a fan of Sin City or anything, but what a human tragedy. And it's basically been ghettofied. All right. Which everybody is commenting on. When Robert had to tell me why that was, what was going on. Like, why are there all these like drug dealers in the Wynn, like posting up and taking over Wynn? Because he used to hike his prices up to the point where those people couldn't afford it. Right. So they would just get another place that was nice for cheaper. But Wynn had pride in who did and did not stay there. He didn't want all the dealers there. So he would jack up his prices, and you'd only get high society or working class that, were there saving their pennies for a vacation, right? Or working upper, class, whatever you want to call it. And now they're on life support. So they have no choice but to offer the $99.99 nightly rate, that others did. It's catastrophic. I wish I could show you pictures from a well-known area. Empty. Dead. And restaurants the restaurant just started to be able to operate at half capacity, by the way. I mean, they're killing major US cities. They're killing them. Slowly strangling the life out of them. I don't know if New York City's ever coming back.
I don't think it is.
And where did I think it's gone to? I mean, we have historic hotels that are now being used for flop houses for the homeless. Places that were landmarks when we were children, Laura. Landmarks, yeah. I was just going to say, you took that right out of my head, Laura.
I did it.
Do you remember when you were a kid? Obviously you do. That's what I was going to say. And for New Yorkers, you know what I'm talking about. How much it mattered to you when you were a kid to go bring that letter to Santa at Macy's, right? What a total catastrophe. What?
Did you take a picture with Robert like you were supposed to for me when you were there?
I mean, I'm sure we did.
You took photos together?
I'm sure we did. Why?
Because I promised I'd post it.
Oh, I can ask some other people if they got them.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
Let's see what else. Where did
Sorry.
I say Samuel was my favorite book in the Bible? I love Samuel. I don't
No,
know that it's
one
my
of your
favorite.
favorites, but
Yeah,
Samuel's
one.
not your favorite.
Nah, I love Daniel.
Daniel. I know.
And
I was gonna say.
I of course I do like I even like Saul's story because I find him to be very human. And David's the man. All right, he's flawed, but man after God's own heart.
That's right.
Which makes me feel better, because I feel like I have a lot in common with David.
Oh, no, you don't.
Like I wouldn't send my friend to the line so I could sleep with his wife, but I mean, I have a lot of other flaws that remind me of David reminds me of. But at the same time, too, can you kill that? That's or whatever it is. But I do love the book Samuel. I love the character himself. I love there wouldn't be kings if Samuel didn't obey God. But I do love Daniel. I do love the book of Daniel.
Well, just because Daniel is a flawed individual who tries his very best.
Oh no! Daniel's the prophet. You're thinking, you're
I thought you were talking about.
No, you're swapping. Daniel, I look because I love the miracle in the fire. That is one of my favorites in the Bible, and the lions, man.
Oh yeah.
I would have crapped myself. Who can lie? All right, I'm about as tough as they come, man. When it comes to guys. I once took on a live badger. I swear to God that happened. All right, I did. I did. I fought with my bare hands a badger. All right, and I'm not kidding. And it shredded me pretty good too, but it was killing it was like wrecking my friend, who's now, God bless his soul, dead. But anyway, he was wrecking him. So I went animal. I got down on all fours and everything. Right? It was epic, but I can't take a lion. All right. No. Let alone a few that are circling me, Daniel's a great book. I don't know where can you ask where you got that from though? Cause I'm just curious. But yeah, I love Old Testament stuff, but I mean, if you guys are asking about my own personal thing, I view myself to be a new covenant guy. So my own personal beliefs are not Old Testament at all. I think that God had reasons to do each, and that Jesus was something new. So I always find myself like Andy Stanley, who was my pastor, by the way. I always find myself wondering why Christians spend so much time defending the 10 commandments in public, right? Where I get, but that's the old covenant. Yeah. So I don't understand why they do that, but then they don't defend sacred tenets of the new covenant, or not even defend it, but let alone defend it, practice them, right? Properly. So yeah, I mean,
it's like the traditionalist in them doesn't want to give it up.
Yeah.
But all right, let's see. Moving forward.
There, and then just holla, just to let you know, because I guess I missed a bunch. There aren't that many people in South Carolina right now. I mean, you'd have to find some out of the box people. But I can tell you this. I mean, there are a few people that if you made examples out of them, some of them would come to the conclusion it's time for them to move on. All right. And Tim Scott's one of them. I'm telling you. I mean, if you made it clear, I mean, he may go do a couple rounds on CNN and MSNBC and say the Republican Party's not for me anymore. I mean, you're going to hear that if you win this fight. If you're a Trump supporter and you win this fight, you're going to hear that. But you just have to keep in mind they're 9%. That's what they are at most. 9% of the Republican Party. Okay. And it could be less. In truth, it could be less, because I suspect some of that had to do with Trump the man and not Trump the policy. All right.
Joel made a funny comment that I want to share. He said, defense industry has the J. Edgar Hoover photos.
I just read that.
Right?
So Joel, the defense industry has the J. Edgar Hoover photos of Lindsey Graham, if you know what I mean. I think we all know what you mean.
Joel.
And it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean,
Do you think if he would run a real MAGA against Graham next time? I mean, 6 years is a long time. I think if, again, Lindsey Graham may just be one of those people who give it up, you know?
And, well, because he knows he's not going to win again.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
When was the last time? Yeah, but 6 years is a long time, and he just won. He just won being a faux MAGA, you know, spineless little coward, begging for money on Hannity, scared of Quinnipiac, scared of Dan Malloy and company at Quinnipiac. Haven't polled an election correctly since I think like 2012. And right, because they blew 14 too. They were too Republican in most of those races, and that's because they were up on Capitol Hill, you know, getting their lunch bought by Paul Ryan. So I mean, you know, there is no a university pollster has no business at those meetings, Laura, briefing the House conference. Know what I'm talking about? They have no business doing that. I would absolutely just say no. I'm a for-profit pollster. That's different. You know, it's totally different. They're university pollsters, so-called nonpartisan university public pollster. Anyway,
Jason wants to know when
Jason, when was the last time we had a budget cut? The truth of the matter is, Jason, we haven't had a real budget cut since Newt Gingrich, and anytime there ever was supposed cuts, that was not true. Those were reductions in the rate of spending. All right. Every year there's what's called baseline budgeting. Okay. It's total Washington. Just understand that there's always an increase in the amount of spending every year, no matter what, even if you do nothing. It's like a COLA for Social Security recipients. All right. Cost of living expenses. All right. It's like one of those, only more. So maybe you get 1-2% every couple of years if you're on Social Security. Congress gets 3 or more every year, regardless. All right. It's to keep up with the rate of inflation, yet they give themselves more money than they'll ever give you. All right. If you simply move to cut that increase, or even the rate that it increases. So not 3 this year, baseline 2. They'll call it a cut and they'll have a freaking meltdown. Nancy Pelosi will be everywhere talking about starving kids in meal trucks, pushing grandma off cliffs. I mean, we've heard it all. It has been so fun. It's been so intellectually dishonest. You can't have a real debate about deficit spending. And by the way, the problem is spending and debt, not deficits. Because as long as the government is growing at a greater rate than you are spending, you will get yourself out anyway. Deficit is a symptom. It's not a problem. So don't fall into their trap. It's focusing on deficit spending is a trap. All right. What's up? What's the next one?
Well, to even go further with that comment, you notice the fight though is always personal, never intellectual. So it's never on the basis of real laws and real problems. It's about them attacking you as an individual. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and your motives and your your motives for who, your personal motives for the policies that you support, right? And it never is even honest, because again, that's a great example. That's why, again, the CBO is the most Newt is right. The CBO has got to go. They have got, I don't know why Donald Trump didn't move to take a wrecking ball to some of these bureaucracies. I mean, it's under, it has no mandate. It has no purpose.
All right. Let's see. Where are we?
Yeah, where are we?
All right. Irish Girl wants to know, how much do these people in DC underestimate Trump and his connections?
That's where we're at then. I started there.
Okay.
All right.
So you didn't answer that one?
Yeah, and Evan, I'm just not familiar enough with the LP. Yeah. I could check it out though. Somebody asked a similar question on what are the odds about it, and Barnes did answer somewhat. Apparently he was more familiar than me. But I didn't look at. I will check that out though for you, right? Can we make a note of that somewhere or something? Yeah. And I'll check it out. I'll have an answer for you. You are a super chat. I'll get an answer for you. Barnes has stated, because I think, I get that traders want to usurp. I did.
I think we left off. Yeah, Sergeant Hody. I get traders want to usurp the MAGA movement, but not getting why they would think Democrats would stop fortifying. Do you think they don't care about ever having a majority, only self-preservation? I think you're exactly right. So DC, when it comes to the leadership, Sergeant, all right, DC is run by the concept of seniority, all right, which is why special interest groups wanted the 17th Amendment to begin with. The longer someone's there, the more seniority they have. They get committee assignments, they get leadership roles, and they get to decide whether to table or advance legislation. And in many ways, a ranking member does have shared power with committee chairman. Only in recent years has it gotten worse. But make no mistake, in a post-Trump era, the Republicans would have a scratch your back and you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back agreement with Democratic leadership, as they always have. So as long as there are those senior leaders there and the rent seekers get what they want, it doesn't really matter who's a majority. It does to Democrats because they're ideologues and they want to get their agenda through. They're true believers and ideologues, which is worse. You can be a true believer and still not be a crazy rabid ideologue. All right. But Republicans are phonies. They're not ideologues. They don't live all right. Let me put it this way. Their philosophy, was born out of a certain way of life that they really no longer share with you. All right. So look at John Roberts. I mean, look at where he came from and then where he ended up. There are few political figures that ever maintained the concept of remember where you came from when they actually rose. So Richard Nixon was one of them, by the way. We revile him, right? He's reviled now, right? But he actually was someone who never forgot where he came from and that he did not come from an ivory tower with a silver spoon in his mouth. And of course, that's part of the reason why they hated Richard Nixon and wanted to get rid of him, because he rose from that to be one of the most powerful man in the world. And after re-election, before Watergate, had it all. He had it all. And they had to get rid of him because he did have sympathy for the little guy. He did. He wasn't really conservative. He was more of a populist realist than he was a conservative. He had domestic social welfare programs that he didn't mind. He thought the EPA was a good idea because he thought it was killing the little guy. Big corporations were killing the little guy, literally killing the little guy. That's why he supported stuff like that a modern Republican would probably, like a Lindsey Graham, would have a meltdown over. He'd make it his crusade to let polluters pollute as much as they possibly wanted. He doesn't give a damn about that. The only green Republicans are in Florida. Matt Gaetz, a green Republican. Ron DeSantis, a green Republican. They are the Republican Party in Florida, by the way, has been fabulous at not letting the left flank them on green issues. You can't do it. Republicans have been too damn green. Even Jeb Bush, I have to give him credit. Under Jeb Bush, remember Twin Lakes? Yeah. Destroyed. Mm-hmm. They had and then Rick Scott really brought it back. And the only reason, if you guys saw the pictures we shared with you that was Lake Santa Fe, another one that was decimated. Yeah. And until Republicans had that revival project. Mm-hmm. And then my son and I were just pulling 7 to 10 pounders out all day long. I have never been on a fishing trip like this in my life. It was my son's first time to largemouth bass fishing. And I had to tell him, Nicola, do not expect this to be the norm. Nobody pulls out 300 pounds worth of largemouth in a single day. That doesn't happen. I mean, it doesn't. But if it wasn't for Republicans being green, and they do so with a beautiful spin, that big polluters are actually hurting the working man, number one, and that they know that Republicans are outdoorsmen and outdoors women. They love to hunt. They love to fish. They love that, right? So they actually focus more on the environment itself than they do on these crazy notions of, some future technology that's going to power the world with the pinky and, and we don't need fossil fuels to do it. I mean, they make Democrats in Florida sound like just nutcase, like extremists. Like, we love the environment. Do you actually know anything about the environment? How much time have you spent in the environment? I mean, it's beautiful. They got them on that issue down there.
And not only that, but they're against guns, so you know they ain't hunting.
That's right.
You know.
I mean, right. So, I mean, who's going to protect the whitetail? Who's going to protect whitetail and hunting season? Not them. I got you. Field and stream, baby. Right? They were beautiful at that. It's like amazing how Republicans nationally are too stupid to see that connection. Republicans had very, very, very close races for many years and needed to learn these things, you know? And plus, it was who they are. It's who they are.
Mm-hmm.
They want Lake Okeechobee to thrive, right? They want the Gulf and Tampa Bay area to thrive. They want to go swim with dolphins. Who the hell doesn't want to swim with dolphins? You think conservatives love dolphins? All right? Manatees? I got your manatee. All right? All right. And I love those alligators. They taste good as hell. I want them to thrive. You know? You know what I'm talking? I mean, it's so brilliant because it's so common. Mm-hmm. It's so common, you know?
It's relatable because they know their environment and they're in their environment.
Yeah.
So there's the difference, though, also. Like, it's not just talking about something.
Yeah.
It's actually
doing and living.
Yep. Eat it. So
yep. That's right.
That's why
all right. Relatable. Let me try to blast through a couple of these. All right. Barnes has stated Trump has great instincts, but a poor choice in personnel. Absolutely. Is there anyone that has the charisma of Trump, but more polished and less prone to political errors? All that said, Trump likely still would have won the election without the signature audit rules changed. Yeah, I do think that he has. I think Barnes right on the money there. And I think that there has to be someone who rises in the Trump movement that has the Trump bonuses, but not the fight. You can fight, but you don't have to fight like that. And the point where it turns people off, right? And for those of you who are deeply supportive of him, look, he didn't have to start a fight with the family. Yeah, right. I mean, stupid stuff like is a perfect example, right? You pick and choose your battles, and especially when you become the president, all right? You have to be a little bit above some things aren't worthy of your response. You're the president of the United States. Let the surrogate do the work. It is not worth your time. You have bigger fish to fry. And he just couldn't let anything go. And that turned a lot of people off. But that's
also because of his desire to want to be liked by all.
Yes.
As well.
Yes, it is. That comes from that. Also, Richard Nixon. Yes. Very much like Richard Nixon. But right now, I don't think there's somebody that's do I have a few people in mind? Yes, I do. But I'm not sure they're ready for prime time. And I'm not sure they truly have it. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we have to talk to them.
We have to see. Dems have total control of Virginia right now. Any chance of Virginia legislature flipping in the next election? Republicans here seem more preoccupied with setting personal score. Yes, the Republican Party of Virginia is in chaos and is, in truth, was never truly strong. Just relied on Virginia being a red state, a 7-point red state for many years, even though all of the demographic handwriting was on the wall and they didn't do anything about it. I think it's very slim. I think Virginia is a blue state. I do.
Somebody said
I think we should Fairfax controls it. Now there are some districts they could probably win back, guys. That's probably true, but they're very disorganized right now. They're in shambles over there. And you need an organization to make a move. I would focus more on keeping North Carolina. That is, what I would tell the Republican Party, because they don't have a DC suburb, but they're allowing the triangle to get out of control. And again, Republicans sometimes are their own worst enemies. Republican governors. Oh, they're going to thank me for the economy. I'm going to get credited. The Republican Party will be seen as the party of the economy. No, they won't, you stupid idiot. You're importing professional class people, and you're going to turn your state blue. They did it to Georgia. They're doing it to Arizona. They did it to Nevada and Washoe County. Reno was Republican for many years when it was just neighborhoods work for people who wanted to get away. And then it was working class element. And then there was, I don't know how to put this the right way, but the kind of country club Republican who like to go there and live there. They imported a bunch of professional class Asians that are highly educated and others that are not.
but are more liberal and from liberal areas. I mean, it was just like a recipe for stupidity to turn the state blue. And most of the time, Hispanics get blamed for that, but that's not true. The 2012 autopsy threw the Republican Party in the wrong direction for a long time, and they couldn't see other things on the horizon because they were focused on a false conclusion. And it's a shame. I wonder how much Reince Priebus paid to get the wrong conclusion, to learn the wrong lesson. All right.
We could have done it for much cheaper.
I bet. How do we organize a comeback to not be divided and conquered by the GOP establishment? This is a great question.
A follow-up question to it. So then also
they do still believe this. Many of them still do believe this after Purdue in the face of all the evidence. I would say this. These people that are going to get primaried and we know are in deep trouble. Let's use Liz Cheney as an example. Mm-hmm. She is going to rely on something that is in the MAGA movement that needs to be corrected if they want to be successful. And Laura, you put this well. Mm-hmm. There are too many people with their own hero-like syndrome, right? So like, I am going to come and fix this. I'm going to come and save this, right? Too many people think they're Donald Trump. All right, that you're not Donald Trump. You cannot win on Twitter. You're not the person that has that brand that people look up to, or not even whether you look up to it, you secretly envy it and you freaking know it. You know what I mean? You want your name written in gold. You want to live in a gold palace. You know you do. Shut up. You want your own plane. Don't pretend like you don't. Shut up. Even AOC wants her own plane. If she tells you otherwise, she's a freaking liar. All right? She wants AOC in gold on the side of that puppy too. Are you kidding? Because that's human nature. And there are too many people who don't really see that they're not Donald Trump. And there's going to be a flooding of them. And when it is time to get out, when you are not the viable candidate, when someone like me tells you that you're a downer and you should, if you really cared, you will leave the race, then they're going to have to listen. Democrats do it. We went over this the other day. Mm-hmm. Their goal is more important than their soul, and I'm not saying give up your soul, but I am simply, it's okay to step back because you're not the best candidate.
Which is doing.
Look what happened to Mike Dittmer in 08, in Michigan 08, in 8th Congressional District of Michigan is what I mean by 08. Mike Dittmer could have won if he didn't have at least one other candidate in that race. He was sharing it with 2-3 other candidates. But when Nikki Schneider was told she wasn't viable and couldn't raise money, she got out of the way and let Paul Young, who pretended to be a Trumper, he was not a Trump. Mike Dittmer was Livingston's pick. Livingston is the biggest vote county in the congressional district, even with the north of Oakland growing. Livingston is still the biggest. It happens to be overwhelmingly Republican, and yet conservatives split that vote. Paul Young snuck by with Ingham County and Oakland County by a few points. Dittmer still could have beaten him. Didn't matter. If it's Dittmer, because Dittmer's running again. If it's Dittmer versus the other, Dittmer's going to win this time if other conservatives don't jump in the race and pretend like they have a better shot.
Just get over
Mike Dittmer is the MAGA guy, and he's honestly, he was even better than Trump on some issues if you're a conservative. That's the truth. Dittmer told the president, he wasn't afraid to go on Twitter and tell the president, Mr. President, I love you, I respect you, but you're wrong on red flag laws. I'm going to be proven right on this. Hold the line. Do not support these red flag laws. Dittmer was right. They were going to use him for that crap. All right? As a pretext. Of course they were. Of course. But Trump was being reactive instead of proactive. At least he didn't go through with it.
Yes.
But if it wasn't for the voices of the Mike Dittmers of the world, he may have. Right? And there was no other viable candidate. Mike was born or he was raised, went to school in Oakland, and then set up home in Livingston, and is now like there as a member of the community for years. It was the perfect formula. You're not going to win Oakland. You know that, right? But you're enough to peel off enough of the vote in Oakland to stay competitive, right? And then you're going to crush it in Livingston because you're the conservative. You're going to crush it. There are 40, or going into this election, there were 40,000 registered voters in the district in Ingham County, the part that's Ingham County. All right. There were about 67,000 in Oakland County, the part of northern Oakland that makes up the district. There are more than 120,000 in Livingston. He easily could have won that election. And really. But instead, they nominated Paul Young. Alyssa Slotkin beat him by 2 or 3 points. That is the model they're going to try to use to hold on. The only way to answer the first and second part of this question, the only way to organize a real comeback is that you're going to have to start playing by the same rules that they play by. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, and listen, that's part of why I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's part of the meetings Robert and I did. Like, it's time to not be Mr. Nice Guy anymore. Mm-hmm. You're going to go. If I say you're going, you're going. I don't care if
it's kicking,
screaming. Yeah, you're not. If you're kicking, you're screaming, I don't really care. You're going. That's it. All right. Why didn't they in Florida? We have integrity deadlines. All right. Integrity deadlines, and Florida did not do all the changes that we saw in the 6 other states. North Carolina didn't really either. A lot of hoopla was being made of that. In truth, in North Carolina, you're always allowed 3-day grace with those absentee ballots as long as there are certain requirements they are met. The only thing that happened this time is that they extended it to 9 days in case the mail was slow. It wasn't really the same that we saw in other areas of the states. And then also a couple of things happened in North Carolina. The Republican Party jumped on it immediately. And they were like, there's no voter ID. They got robbed of their voter ID. It passed. The voters overwhelmingly wanted it. It passed, in the legislature, which they won overwhelmingly, running on that issue, by the way. And then basically they ran to courts and a Democratic governor eventually, and they were able to get rid of it. So Republicans were on their toes in North Carolina, and they were all over the matches. There's a critical race here. I don't want to get into it, but the Democrat agreed to toss these ballots. They later tried to come back because they wanted them, because when the race was close, right? But they had agreed these kinds of ballots would be rejected. And then they couldn't get back after the fact and then try to get them in and have them go one by one in a canvassing board. I mean, they were clearly in any other election would have been junked. They would have been tossed. I mean, they're not valid. They're not legal votes. So they screwed themselves in North Carolina by agreeing to that beforehand and then not having a way to turn back the clock. And you saw that with the Supreme Court candidate. She tried like hell because she was 500 votes or something behind. So she probably would have won if they didn't do that. But they did. So the Republicans in North Carolina did a good job staying on top of things. And in Florida, the truth is, since Bush v. Gore, Florida has had very solid election reform laws, which include integrity deadlines, which means, for those who don't know, you must report by, let's say, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Election Day. How many Election Day votes do you have? Not what the vote is. How many Election Day votes do you have? How many in-person early votes do you have? How many absentee ballot votes do you have? Tabulations. Why? Because we know what it means when 30,000 ballots arrive at 2 a.m. And, they just came out of nowhere.
Florida's been there, got the scars from it.
Been there, done that. We got the t-shirt. We're never going back. Right. Or at least with like that, right, for the foreseeable future. There have only been 2 exceptions to that, which were Linda and Brenda. And they would refuse to follow the integrity deadlines when it came specifically, amazingly, to their party's mail-in vote and their in-person vote, which somehow get lost. I mean, it's ridiculous. If you vote in Florida, you know what we're talking about. You go, you vote in early, it goes in the machine. It's tabulated. That's it. It's done. So this was always ridiculous. Ron DeSantis removed them. And notice everything went smoothly. 40, 50, 60, 80, 90, 100,000 ballots did not arrive in Broward County after the deadline. Why? Because that was never happening. Okay. That was never. That was the Pitney vote.
Skyrocketed.
Yeah.
For the Republicans.
And to the point where we wonder, and even in Broward,
Yeah,
And to the
I'm
point where we wonder how much of that was always shenanigans. Were Republicans ever really in the low to mid 20s in Broward County?
I don't
Were
think
they
so.
ever really? Or was that just Brenda and company, right? And then in Miami-Dade, some Republicans would do fairly well, maybe 40, right? Were they ever really at 35, 40%? You know, I tend to think it was probably only a few points higher, but Donald Trump moved that needle because of the Venezuelans and the Cubans and Guatemalans too, you know, down the damn line, really. So that, what a great question. But they're not all of those states are the same. They didn't enact different. Those 6 that are in question happen to be the ones who got as much as the Democrats wanted. And then Rona would take to Twitter, major victory. Okay, Rona. All right. By the way, how's fundraising going, Rona? All right. Hopefully you guys get this question. Rich and Robert making a plan to counter Trump if he derails your potential back candidates. Trump seems to listen to all the wrong people and backward can't. I don't expect. This is why actually kind of Robert and I were hanging back thinking if Donald Trump does something, then it may not be worthwhile. We were kind of waiting to see what Trump would do with his infrastructure and apparatus and his finances before we did what we did, because it maybe be counterproductive, maybe be.
I can't see it being a disparity.
But he's not. He's not. The
Yeah.
truth of the matter is they're not moving. And they're not moving as fast as, you know, it was made to believe they would. But even if he did, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. That happened in 2018 because he was trying to make nicey with Kevin McCarthy. That's why he backed John Cox over Travis Allen. That's why he backed Luther Strange, right?
Now he has nothing on the line.
Now he's got nothing on the line, right? He can back who he wants. And you actually even saw him do that, guys, toward the end of his presidency. Mm-hmm. He went with Tuberville. Everyone wanted, or by the way, it's freaking Tuberville, right? Wait a minute. I just was watching.
I think you said
somebody kept correcting me. And I saw him introduce himself and shake hands. And he said it the way I said it before. Now you guys have me confused. And I was like, I told you. What was it?
I don't remember.
He said Tuberville, I think. He said, hey, Tommy Tuberville. And people have been telling me it's Tuberville, right? Mm-hmm. He said, right? Didn't he? He said, hey, Tommy Tuberville. And I turned to Laura. I'm like, the man knows his own name.
But you still say Nevada wrong.
Oh, the hell with it. All right, last. No, I meant the dissent is only 9%. I can get through that really quickly.
Read that out loud?
Yeah. So somebody said Trump's swing is only 9% of the GOP. Really? No, I'm saying the dissent is only 9%. The Nikki Haley, John Kasich, wing, Lincoln Project, 9% at best. That need to be primaried. Is there a list of getting them? A list of establishment primary targets on the way. On the way. All right. Already there's going to be a handful first, but on the way. All right.
And then somebody was wondering about our project.
Very soon, apparently.
Coming to it
very soon. We had to get, and that was part of one of the trips I took. We're trying to figure out which way was the best course of action. And I mean that because you're treated differently under a Biden administration than you're treated under a Trump administration. We are now back to a group of people who think that it's okay to use the power of government to squash your political allies. So I am always on the up and up with everything, but I especially want to be T's crossed, I's dotted, because I know people who were unfairly targeted by Obama. I personally know people. He sicked the IRS after people. I'm talking about without a pretext, guys. I'm not talking about like there was something legitimately wrong, a question. No. He had an enemies list, and he used the government to go after them. Made Richard Nixon look like a choir boy. And Joe Biden is lights out over there. He's not doing anything. I mean, the people who surrounded Barack Obama and used to try to get him to do even crazier stuff than he was willing to do are now in charge. And, Hollow Joe over there isn't doing anything to stop him. He's not even allowed to read his own executive orders. I think we all know now that I was right. Now that actual audio came out. It was basically, shut up, Joe, sign it. You don't need to know, Joe. You're not need to know, Joe. Right? You're no need to know, Joe. No need to know geriatric Joe Biden. Jesus. God. Or as Robert calls him, what does he call him? His illegitimacy the second. Rutherford B. Hayes is first. his illegitimate excellency the second, or so. I don't know what Robert calls. It's funny as hell. All right. With that, I'm going to bid you all a great weekend. If you're on locals, I think we got this. Listen, let me just say this, because we were trying to do this yesterday. Over the weekend when we do this video, if it's just a crapshoot, okay, and it's a testing thing, and we may do it on regular social media too, just granted, just deal with it for a second. Do me a favor, entertain me, because I can't stand this anymore. You see what happened here? First of all, I look like I haven't slept in 10 days, and I look white. You look pasty. This thing has it's the quality of this. We go to Wirecast and it looks like you're standing in front of me. Like, that's how clearly defined it is, and the lighting is. It's so much better. And this is browser based, which means you can't even have a one other tab up, and there may be a problem.
So
I mean,
it's ridiculous. Live notification around 10 p.m.
Yeah, if you get because we were gonna do it later at night. If you get a live notification and it's 10, if you want to laugh, by all means, jump on. And then when we get it together, I want to talk about a couple I've been wanting to talk about legislation that's in Congress. All right, but
real quick, somebody asked about Matt, if he's credible and what we think of him.
Yeah, I mean, I've met Matt. I found him to be a serious guy. I can't give you his inner workings of his business, but I do know we have also, even before we met, we spoke on the phone about what he was doing, what I was doing, looking into when we were investigating, and he was doing, contrary to what the media smeared him with, what he was doing, his methodology, at least identifying records, was the industry standard. First name, last name, address, date of birth. Okay. This idea there's some other magic data attribute that absolutely, when voters register, they don't get their freaking social security numbers. That is the industry standard. And the more attributes, the merrier, right? So if you don't have a first name, last name, initial, date of birth in the order of month, day, year, maybe you have first name, last name, month, date of birth, year, date of birth, and then you have to match it with the address to make sure it's the right John Smith, born October 1990, whatever. So whatever. I mean, his methodology at least sounded sound. The only thing I could see a fair criticism was, I don't know why he didn't call me first and ask me a proper call script.
He should have.
I would have given it to him for free. I mean, it wouldn't have. No. You have to introduce yourself like this. You have to say this is what you're doing.
Navarro gave him most of.
I don't. Yeah. Oh well, he gave. I don't know who wrote that script for him. I'm talking about the script when his call center called. Yeah. Sorry. No, Navarro was good. He passed along what we gave. Mm-hmm. I mean, they asked for it. I gave it to him. Including every single timestamp of when the vote changed and how much it changed by, how much was supposed to be left at what time. And I mean, it's very clear, guys. Donald Trump late at night was ahead very, very large margin in Georgia. Everybody expected 120,000 Fulton County votes remaining, and yet somehow 220 plus came in. That's a lot more than the estimate. And particularly considering every battleground state gave us the number of absentee ballots or vote by mail ballots that were cast already and how many ballots were out. So when I'm telling you that basically almost all of the ballots that were out supposedly were returned, I'm not kidding. I mean, it's ridiculous. Where was it? I just looked the other day. It was California. We were looking at something somewhere else. It was 90% turnout.
27.
It was 90% turnout in California, one of the states with the dirtiest rolls out there.
That precinct is horrible.
I mean, it was ridiculous. Ridiculous. I'm like, wait a minute, Laura. Are they trying to tell me? And they were. Minus change of address flags. Minus the deceased. Minus how many people are on there and shouldn't be on there. There's duplicate records. It happens all the time. and they're telling me you're 90%. That's ludicrous.
There has to be an error somewhere in there.
It's a whole district. The whole district we looked at. It's crazy. All right. So with that, yep, I'm going to bid you adieu. Don't forget to follow me still while I'm on Twitter. If you're still on Twitter, at peoples_pundit. But we are really trying to migrate it all over to locals. So the link is down below. When I do that welcome video, I don't like any of them. I'm going to have to just pick one and put it up. Then when you go to peoplespundit.locals.com, you'll see the welcome landing page. But because I haven't done that yet, it goes to a 404. I figured that out for you, for those of you who are asking. All right. And if you're on Facebook, don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily. That will let you know when we're going to go live. Also, YouTube watchers, if, of course, subscribe. That goes without saying. Like the video right now. Thumbs up, thumbs up. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. Okay? So with that, I bid you adieu. As it stands right now, I believe there's a Don Smith show tomorrow. When I told you guys that last week, I got told either late Friday or early morning that there was no show. But as I know right now, Don and I will talk. It's a big week. Can't imagine him missing. I think he had something he had to do. All right. But 12:30, I'll be on. But his show is always fantastic. So noon Eastern Standard Time, Don Smith show. Keep an eye on my Twitter feed for it, of course. All right.
And also
Gitmo.life. You can find me at People's Pundit on Gitmo.life, which since we started talking about it, looks like
come on, I want to get
people
to
are really
3,
noticing. This is a
3,
fantastic
we're almost
site.
there.
We had Manny on last week. He put this site together. He's been working in big tech his basically entire adult life. Fantastic user interface, way better than Twitter. The hell with Twitter. All right. Anyway,
also Unstructured is probably going live.
Oh yeah, when is Eric's gonna have a great show on today?
It's going.
It's going right now. Eric Hunley, Unstructured. We're gonna pop it on as soon as we get off. In fact.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, let's go. Let's let people go over there if they can. It's on YouTube. Unstructured. Eric Hunley got Viva Fry on it today.
Yes.
Right.
And another attorney.
And another. It's gonna be just a great show. All right. So with that, I bid you adieu. I bid you adieu, guys, and we will see you on Inside the Numbers, or What Are the Odds, on Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
We love you guys.
All the best, folks. Love you all. See you. Have a great weekend, but have a safe weekend.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head? Before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. cigarette.